Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another weekly podcast with Jay Buston and myself, Matt Lane. And today we are diving into an interesting topic that I would say kind of is outside of the norm for both of us as far as the genre this goes into, but it's so interesting and so unique that it deserves to be talked about. So we're going to start this episode with talking about The Evil Within, specifically The Evil Within 2, because we now have a trailer from it from the latest E3, and we kind of want to discuss kind of what's going on here. Now, if you missed last week's episode, just for a quick recap, we have a little bit of a different format, and for what Jay has deemed Season 2 of our podcast. I'm never going to let that go, by the way.
It is what it is.
It's just funny to say out loud, I guess. But anyway, for Season 2, we are just doing kind of one topic as far as just what we want to talk about, and then we just let it go where it goes after that, as opposed to Season 1, where we had kind of 3 games that we would talk about in depth, and we kind of planned a little more. This one's a little more loose and improv, is kind of just going where it goes. But without further ado, we're going to go and talk about The Evil Within 2. Now, the trailer for this one at E3 did not do what I wanted it to do. If you played the first game, which was just, the first Evil Within, you know that it left a stupid amount of unanswered questions at the end of it, to where you're kind of like, what just happened? I have so many freaking questions. There was just so much room to where you knew without a doubt when that game ended, okay, they're either about to pick up a lot of crap on the DLC, or they're leaving room for the second one, or whatever they're going to do. You knew that without a fact, without a doubt. I don't know why I said fact. Because I can't even really explain how many unanswered questions there were. It's just one of the things. You either need to go play it or just go watch someone play through it, which is what the fabulous thing known as YouTube is for. There are plenty of people that you can go watch play through the entire game.
Yeah, there are these really weird things called Let's Plays, where basically someone plays through a game but pretends that it's a community thing, and then they make a bunch of money.
Hashtag Jay come out of retirement.
Nope.
I'm going to push for it every episode until we get him out of retirement. And then it never happens, and then everybody's sad. But you know what? Retro things are cool. So eventually he'll make it happen. Maybe one day. Anyway, so to give a layout, because I know Jay has told me he didn't play the first game.
No, I know very little to almost nothing about this series, to be honest with you. I'm looking at a couple screenshots now just to kind of try to get an idea of what this is. And I'm very confused.
Yeah, I would definitely, and I know that you don't do horror, but I would still say it is worth watching a Let's Play of it, because there's not enough scary horror for it to bother you, I don't think. Just from what I know about the games you say that are scary and the ones that aren't, I don't see that being a problem here. It bounces between suspenseful and just freaking weird. There are a few moments where it's suspenseful, but not in the fact that it's scaring you from watching. It'd be one of those things that if you were playing it, it restricted you to where there was only one way to do what you were doing right. So you were just very panicked and kind of like trying to make this work kind of thing. Have you ever played a game like that?
Again, I don't really touch the horror genre a whole lot, so...
Not necessarily hard, just in like the fact that whatever game it was, it made it suspenseful for you because either what you were doing was really difficult, or they stripped away your weapons, or whatever it was, to where there wasn't a whole lot of options for you. So there was only one way to do it, and they made it seemingly difficult. So it was kind of panicky in the fact of you were just worried that what you were going to do wasn't going to work.
Well, I can. One thing comes to mind immediately from describing that. And I hate to beat a dead horse, which is also something you can do in this game. And that's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
That is not the game I expected to bring up out of that.
No, but there's points of the game where, because the whole game is about, one of the major mechanics anyway, it's about building your inventory. Like, you don't have like the Kokiri sword at the beginning of the game or whatever. You pick up a stick, and then you use that stick to defeat an enemy, and you take their club, and then you take their, you beat them, and you take a spear, and then you beat them, and you grab their, rusty sword or whatever. And you're building this arsenal of these bows and arrows and shields and swords or whatever. But there are a couple points where they just drop you into a situation, and the new DLC that's coming out for it does this as well. It strips you of everything. All your healing items, all your buffs, all your armor, all of your weapons, everything is just completely gone. And it drops you into this location, and you have to survive and thrive.
Well, I mean, yeah, that could be a basic correlation between them. Have you ever played a game? Let me try to say another instance. There were several points of the game to where it gave you an enemy that could not be killed. Like, just case in point, there was no way to kill it. Your only mission was to get away from it. Have you ever played anything like that?
There's multiple games like that.
So it does a lot of that, to where like the
does
thing
it do that in like a stealth way of like, if this thing sees you, you're dead, or like a just run kind of way?
They did it in both.
Oh, great. My least favorite.
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily you would like to play the game. I'm just saying it would definitely be worth watching, because it's a very interesting game as far as the story is very interesting, and the way they warp the fabrics of reality in it is really cool visually, and kind of messes with your mind a little bit. And I don't really know a good way to describe it other than imagine if you were playing Inception, the video game, but with monsters and creepy stuff.
Okay.
Basically, would be a good way to put it, because there's the user and the character himself are constantly questioning what's real and what's not, because he remembers going into this asylum-looking thing to where there's a bunch of people, and then he got stabbed with a syringe by some weird-looking dude, and suddenly crap got weird. And he remembered that happening, though, so he's like, is this all happening? Am I in a bed somewhere and this is just all in my mind? And you keep kind of bouncing back and forth between the stuff where the weird stuff's happening, and then you're back to the asylum to where you think you're back in reality, but then you really don't know if you are or not the entire time. And you constantly just don't know. And that it's really cool on that aspect for the user, because you don't know. There's so many questions that you have. You're like, I legitimately don't know what's going on right now, and I'm trying to figure it out.
All while also trying to survive.
Very much so. And the back to the visual aspects, I remember multiple instances of thinking that was really freaking cool, and just weird but really freaking cool visual effect and transitions, to where you might be walking down a hallway and suddenly the color of the hallway starts to like change gradually, and like in some sort of animated effect, or it might be vines or something like start going down the hallway and make it darker. And then the room twists to where suddenly you were walking down this long hallway to where there's a door, and then suddenly it's just an L shape to where there is no more door and it's moving somewhere else, and you're like, what just happened? Kind of thing.
So it really messes with you.
Very much so. It's very much a mind game. To give you a brief synopsis of the story, essentially you're a detective and you go to this place that there was a report of something happening. You get there's a bunch of cops dead, there's a bunch of medical staff dead, like there's just blood everywhere. Like, what the frick happened here? And that's when this character literally pulls a thing out of Dragon Ball Z or whatever game or anime or whatever you want to call it, to where he just appears behind you, kind of like an instant transmission kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And then stabs you with a syringe, specifically in the eye. So it's kind of one of those bothersome things for some people.
Yeah, that's okay.
It doesn't show it vividly going into your eye, but you knew that's where he got stabbed.
Yeah.
Not to mention every time you upgrade, you stab yourself in the eye with a syringe. So there's
What
that.
is this game?
There's that for people who, again, it doesn't show it just sit there, go in like vividly, but you know what's happening. Anyway, that happens, and you kind of, you were in the room with multiple people when it happened. And when you go into the alternate reality or dream or whatever the frick you want to call it, they're also there with you. So that makes it even worse, questioning what's happening there, here or there. And the enemies are zombie or ghoulish kind of in nature, to where they are feral. You know, they're obviously not people anymore, whatever they are, but you don't really know. The whole game is constantly evolving to where at first you're like, okay, I'm just in a world of zombies, and then it kind of starts bringing out other monsters to where like, okay, this is a little more evolved than that. And then the ladder just keeps going higher and higher. Like, you just slowly start to realize, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, things may not be as okay as I may have thought previously.
Nope, because at first you're like, oh, it's just a bunch of zombies. I got this. Shoot them in the head. We're good.
Yeah.
No problem. And then one of them had like a giant weapon that it was carrying. Like, that is not normal for a zombie. I mean, I've seen a few adaptations where zombies carried weapons, but then it just kind of, it started slow, like it wanted you to expect this going this way, and then it just, like, psych,
Yeah.
gonna go a different direction. It would just completely sweep the leg.
Well, it's
like
interesting, because as you've been describing this game to me, and again, I never played this game, I don't know anything about it. A lot of what came to mind are Resident Evil type things. And it's actually made by the same guys that made the seminal Resident Evil games. So, I mean, it's not going to be the same thing in the same way that, like, Bloodborne is a different game from Dark Souls, but, like, at the core, it might be similar. Like, it definitely has similarities because it was made by the same people.
I'd say the combat has some similarities. As far as the style of what you have to do, definitely.
Yep.
There are a few. The biggest difference is just the mind game going. Like, I've never seen.
No, that certainly is a super creative thing, because like because there's a lot of times where like you as the player are like in like an outside role from everything. Like, you know everything that's going on and you're helping to guide your character through it. But like in this game, you're just as lost as they are.
At all times. And like, it never gets like, let me throw this one at you. So there's a specific save point, to where, it's broken mirrors, and it's really cool. I love when games do this. There's a specific, little sound snippet that always starts to play when you know a save area is nearby. It's this little piano melody it always plays when there's a save point nearby. So you know, not only visibly if you find it, but you'll hear it before you get there.
Nice.
And it travels you kind of like a bunch of games do these days. There's a hub kind of like just home place. Yep. It constantly changes visually what's going on in the hub based upon what's happening in the story. At first, you just think it's a hub, and then the more you pay attention, the more you realize every single time you're there is something different in that room. And a lot of it is clues that give stuff of an idea of what's unraveling in the story. But even weirder, there have been times in the game to where you're fighting something, you're going down a hallway, and then suddenly, the visual warp happens to where the room starts changing, and then you're in the save room, you're in the hub room. You're like, what why? What just happened? And then instead of it being like, it still acts as the save room, but it has like access points to where they made that part of what is happening at that point. So like whoever designed that game, I give them 5 stars, because the visuals of it are just amazing to watch, and the transitions of stuff from one place to another is just really weird, but in a cool way, to where like, wow, I did not expect that happening. and even at the end of the game, to where you've seen these things happen a million times, they always seem to do it when you don't expect it to happen.
Well, I mean, that's just the sign of a good game.
Very much so. Now, the downfall of the game, to me, I guess there are some people that would find it appealing, is that they left way too many freaking unanswered questions. Way too many. I don't want to spoil it too much, because I know it's not a really old game. But I will say at the very end of it, you still don't know what is real and what's not. Like, it didn't give you closure. And you're still trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know. Should I say the fate of the antagonist or not?
No, I think we should leave. Like you said, it's a fairly new game. I think we should leave it open for people to explore.
Okay, so I'll leave that unsaid, but I will say that it didn't give me the closure I wanted. I'll say that, regardless of which way it went. Like, it was more of a, I still don't understand. Like,
it's like watching. It was like watching an episode of Lost. Like, I just have more questions than I got answers.
Pretty much, to where but the good thing is, even though that was the case, I wanted to know the answers. I wasn't like pissed off that happened. Like, I was ready for more. I wanted more. Like, I wanted whatever was happening to continue, which is a very good thing. That means the game was done very well.
Yeah, and now we have more, or we will have more. The game is slated to come out Friday the 13th in October. Friday, October 13th, 2017.
That's fitting.
Yep. I just read that, and it's amazing to me.
Good PR, whoever did that.
Yep. And I also realized the reason why I didn't hear it, because I watched most of E3. If you go back and listen to our episode from 2 weeks ago, when I basically did a play-by-play recap of E3, there was one conference that I said I didn't watch because it put me to sleep, and that was Bethesda. And this game was shown off after the first 2 minutes of Bethesda's conference, which is when I fell asleep. So.
Now, I will say, if you go watch the trailer for this, it's not going to tell you a dang thing. Like, if you watched it, you'd be like, I am not really sure what I just watched.
Yeah. And I certainly will watch the trailer to this, and I encourage you guys to do the same, and leave your impressions about it in the comments. This was a game that the first one even flew under my radar, but that's probably because I'm
It's outside of Jay's genre.
Yeah, I'm a pansy when it comes to horror games. But, certainly something I'd like to maybe watch or see someone stream it or something like that.
I would definitely recommend you watch it. And I do stand by my statement. I think you can handle it. I don't know what things bother you and what don't. Like, maybe don't watch it with headphones, maybe. Like, do speakers or something.
That kind of stuff doesn't bother me as much. It's more just like, I don't know. Maybe I'll go into it another day when I can get my thoughts a little less on the spot or something like that.
But anyways, that's gonna be it for today's episode, guys. We kind of just had a little bit of fun there talking about something that kind of is outside of both of our norms, to be honest, because I don't really play horror games either, for that matter. I think I play it a little more than Jay does, but even then, so it's barely. Like, that's just not something I typically enjoy. But this, like I said, throughout the rest of this episode, it's not really, I wouldn't classify it as a horror game. I really, quite frankly, don't know how to classify this game. It's kind of in its own world, to be honest, which is very hard to do in today's age. So it's definitely worth at least watching. I know we've said that a few times now, but I stand by it. Like, if you haven't seen anything on it, at least go read about it or watch someone play it or stream it or whatever options you have on the thousands of different ways you can do it in media these days. It's definitely worth going and doing. And leave a comment. The question of the day will kind of be, what was the coolest game you have played as far as it blowing your mind in specific ways? Now, for me, it's easy. We just talked about it. Like, this game constantly was like, okay, did not see that coming. And not necessarily in a way to where, like, oh, that is the most groundbreaking thing I've ever seen in my life. It's more of just, that surprised me. Hey, that surprised me. Like, it's just, and it never saturated. You know, like if you play the game Dead Space, it's scary as balls in the beginning of it, but you kind of get a little more accustomed to it as it goes. Not to say you can't get scared at the end, but you get a little more grounded in it. Whereas this, they constantly surprise. Like you never got used to expecting what was going to happen. And that's really hard to do, and it was really cool. So my answer is without a doubt that. I don't know if Jay has an answer prepared for that one.
You know what? I'm sitting here like looking over my stack of games, and I can't think of anything that's really blown my mind in recent history. And maybe I need to start searching for a game to do that. I mean,
well, this one will do it if you watch it. I can guarantee you that.
Like a lot of the games I play kind of just have like a predictable storyline. Like Breath of the Wild blew my mind visually. But the story of it was almost a back seat to the rest of the experience. And it was like, okay, you're the good guy. You need to defeat Ganon. Go do it. It's, pretty basic story. Now, granted, it was a lot deeper than that. And there was a lot more things along the way. But, there wasn't a huge plot twist. It wasn't like, surprise, Ganon's the good guy and Zelda's a jerk. Like there wasn't really a mind-blowing moment in it. I think the last game I played that really had a plot twist like that was probably BioShock.
That was especially BioShock Infinite. That would be
I didn't play Infinite. I've only played the first one. And actually, I haven't played the first one. I've only seen streams of the first one. But
Infinite has a much bigger shock.
Well, I have it. I have the BioShock collection for PS4, and I'll get to it someday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
I might skip 2. I might play 1 and go straight to 3.
Now, I remember us talking about this, and I don't remember what episode it was, but it's only shocking and groundbreaking if you had played BioShock 1. You have to at least understand the story of BioShock 1 and then go play BioShock Infinite, and then it's going to mess with you really bad. And it doesn't happen until the very freaking end of the game. That's what they did a good job with that one. That's a good point, bringing up that game. That would be my second runner-up to Evil. The only reason I give it to the Evil Within is just because the amount of times it surprised me. And it was in different ways every time. It wasn't just like the story wasn't necessarily shocking. I mean, it had unique moments to where, okay, I may not have seen that coming, but it was just the gameplay and the way they changed stuff up was constantly messing with me. Now, the game had its faults. Some of the gameplay was not the smoothest in the world. And because of the constant changing, they kind of changed the way you were having to play the game style-wise, because there would be moments where you're having to be sneaky, moments where you need to be the opposite of sneaky and go as fast as you can. And some people might like that because it's keeping you on your toes, but in another sense, it's keeping you very out of rhythm to where you're not really acclimated either way. Like you're kind of constantly having to change what you're doing.
I mean, as long as it's crystal clear as to what you're supposed to be doing, that's fine. Because there are times in some games where it's like, okay, well, see, that's a problem then. Because if you're supposed to be running away, but you're trying to hide and just getting caught over and over again and dying over and over again, then it gets frustrating.
Yeah, it's not. They go, I don't want to say quite this far, but they kind of go a Dark Souls route on that one. Like you typically don't have a pointed direction of where to go in certain things. A little more so than Dark Souls. Like they give you 0. But that would be the one weak point of the game. I would say that the constant changing kind of throws off the gameplay a little bit. But my biggest praise of the game is the story and the visual constantly changing. That's kind of what blew me away. Not necessarily the gameplay. That's why I say I'm not telling you to go play it, but I'm definitely telling you to go watch it.
Yeah, go experience it for yourself.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what other people have played that have blown their minds. And maybe I think I'll probably take some of these suggestions to heart, because I think I need an experience like that where a game just completely wrecks me. Now, that being said, I'm actually about to go play Life is Strange, and I've heard that game can be pretty mind-blowing. So,
well, the name itself would...
Yeah, right? So
You would think so. But that's going to be it for today's episode, guys. Thanks for stopping by and listening, and just make sure to leave a comment on the question of the day, which is just what game has blown your mind, and like, comment, and subscribe for anything about anything. If you want to talk about something else, feel free. We'll, of course, talk to you about whatever the freaking one. If you want to talk about soup, we'll talk about soup. and why you're at the soup store.
I'm at soup.
Clothes. Why you're trying to buy clothes at the soup store. Good night, everybody.
Good reference, dude. Good, solid reference.